A South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, is facing a possible impeachment threat over the Farmgate scandal. The president has been accused of covering up a $4 million theft from his farm in 2020, including kidnapping and bribing the burglars into silence. An independent panel appointed by the Speaker of the country's parliament has found parliamentary evidence that President Ramaphosa violated his oath of office and may have broken the anti-corruption law. The panel's findings have been handed to Parliament, which is set to examine and decide whether or not to launch impeachment proceedings next week. The Farmgate scandal erupted in June when a former South African spy boss, Arthur Fraser, filed a complaint with police accusing the president of hiding a theft of $4 million in cash from his farm in the northeast of the country in 2020. The president immediately denied any wrongdoing and has not been charged with any crimes. Oscar Emetuei is the National Deputy President of Nigerian Citizens Association South Africa, and he joins me on the news to discuss this. Thank you so much for joining us on the news this time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, very quickly, how delicate is the fate of the South African president following this farm scandal? Do you see danger ahead of him?
Firstly, I want to say thank you for having me. Like you rightly acknowledged, there's danger ahead, considering that there's been happening at this point in time, just a few more days to the elective conference where the ruling party, the African National Congress, pick or elect the representative whom eventually, if the party wins, becomes the head of state or the president. So it doesn't signal a very good thing for his political career come 2024. It does mean, or to some extent, show that there's great danger. But some pundits are arguing that we have the African National Congress majority at the parliament. So regardless of the independent report that we had yesterday, there's still this argument that to some extent, the majority might somehow win against any impeachable offense, because from the finding that we had, it's showing that the president has committed or to some extent violated his oath of office. So I smell danger ahead of the debate that's coming up.
Well, so the president has denied any wrongdoing and has not been charged with any crimes. But how popular do you think he is with the parliament?
When it comes to popularity and regarding the steer that this case first caused when it came up or emanated in 2020, the popularity first and foremost has to center around the best interest of the country. And the majority of the people wants a president they can be proud of, a president who, from when he assumed office, had promised he would deal with corruption. So if you were looking at someone who made these promises, and again, we have issues hanging around him, not being able to live up to what he promised. To a greater extent, I'm not sure his popularity can still command that overwhelming vote that he got in the last election. So I think it's not really acting in his favor right now.
Well, if you look at it, the timing of the scandal could hardly be worse, as the president is less than a month away from an elective conference that would decide if he gets to run for a second term on the governing ANC ticket at 2024 polls. So do you think this would have any meaningful impact on his nomination bid?
I strongly do believe it will have a very strong impact. Like I did say earlier on, but this is beyond just one sweep it under the carpet. It's putting the interest of the country first. So when you present a candidate to be elected by the voters, so what is it that we're looking at for? Are you wanting to vote in or elect someone who is already having issues in his first tenure? There's so much issues hanging around him. And again, don't forget, the report that we had that came in yesterday is just one part. This is the one from the parliament. We still are waiting the investigation by the SAP. The Hawks are still yet to come up with their findings. So however you look at this, it definitely is going to affect his chances of emerging as the leader come 2024, that we cannot. And of course, I'm sure you've been following what's been happening. There are other political parties that are already calling, like the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, they're already calling for the resignation of the president and other political parties at the parliament. Now, how would this not affect someone who wants to become the next leader or continue in office to say he's fighting corruption? So there are a whole lot of issues that are hanging. What most pundits right now are putting forward is he should just resign, maybe more honorable now, he admits, even though he hasn't yet admitted, how about you step down? How about you resign and probably allow the country to move forward?
Well, President Ramaphosa took power in 2018 and the promise of fighting corruption. To what extent would you say South Africa has been purged of corrupt practices?
That is to, I'll say, I use the word 50-50. 50-50 in the sense that there's some, remember, his emergence as the president has led to some crack in the ruling party. So you have those internally who are still opposed to him, whereas on his part, he's here to fight corruption. Like the Secretary General that's still currently in court, trying to clear his name. Now, to some quarters, you hear he's doing really, really amazing well in the fight against corruption. I'm sure you also did follow the jailing of the former president. So, to a greater extent, how else do you demonstrate your commitment and resilience to fighting corruption? Yes, people are sick. But again, on the other end, some political individuals are also seeing it as witch hunting or doing the bidding of some political powerful individuals that seems to be in charge of controlling. So if you ask me, I think it's 50-50. There's some positive feedback or we've seen in terms of fighting of corruption, especially in the public space, in government. There's really a clear, definite fight in that area that we can see some people being prosecuted or some being in court currently. That's a good sign, if you ask me. I'm sure corruption is not just a one-day issue or a one-day affair that can be completely wiped out at once. So for me, I would say it's making some giant strides. But however, we need to see much more, especially with regarding to this.
Oscar, very quickly, before I let you go, the president has generally insisted that any party official accused of corruption should leave office pending investigations. And then, do you think he himself should step aside pending investigations?
Yeah, of course, that's, if you ask me from my school of thought where I stand, I would say that should be the right thing. But however, how do you step aside? First of all, it might to some extent look like you are admitting to committing that crime. That has been the case. In fact, that was how and what led to the Secretary General of the ruling party, ANC, resigning or asking the Secretary General to step aside to clear his name and probably can't come back. Now, there has been that infighting. This has been your position in terms of how we fight and address corruption. But what is happening with Pala? Why is the president not stepping down? Why is he not honorable enough to say, even though you might be innocent, why don't you step down, maybe play on it, and then come back? But
absolutely.
This is what the people are looking forward to seeing in the next debate that will be coming up at the parliament on the 6th of December.
Absolutely. We'll see how the whole issue is handled in the fullness of time. National Deputy President of Nigerian Citizens Association South Africa, Oscar Emetuei, thank you so much for your time on the news.
Thank you so very much.